These psychological phenomena provide fascinating insights into how our brains work and sometimes deceive us in ways we don't even realize. Here's a closer look at each one. Number 12. The Mandela Effect. The Mandela Effect refers to the phenomenon where large groups of people remember events or details one way, only to discover they never actually happened. Named after the false memory that Nelson Mandela died in the 1980s, despite actually dying in 2013, this effect highlights how our memories can be distorted. Examples include people swearing that the Monopoly Man has a monocle, he doesn't, or misquoting Darth Vader as saying, "Luke, I am your father." He actually says, "No, I am your father." This is not evidence of alternate realities or parallel universes. It's simply our brains filling in gaps, smoothing over memories, and sometimes getting it wrong. Our minds are fantastic at making connections, but sometimes they get too creative and manufacture entire false memories to make sense of things. The Mandela Effect reveals how imperfect our memory is and how collective memory can shape our reality. Number 11. Capgras Delusion. Capgras delusion is a rare condition where someone believes that their loved ones have been replaced by imposters or duplicates. The brain's emotional recognition system is severed from the visual recognition system, so while the person can recognize the face of their loved one, they no longer feel the emotional connection that typically accompanies that recognition. This creates a deep sense of dissonance, which the brain resolves by inventing the idea of a doppelganger or imposter. The brain prefers a fantastical explanation for the sensory mismatch, rather than accept that its emotional circuitry has malfunctioned. This disorder underscores how deeply emotional connections to people are tied to brain function, and how those connections can be disrupted by neurological conditions. Number 10. Perseveration. Stuck thoughts. Have you ever found yourself unable to shake a song, phrase, or thought, even after trying to focus on something else? This is called perseveration, and it's like the brain's broken record. In most cases, this happens when the brain struggles to shift focus from one thought to another. It can be harmless, like when you get a song stuck in your head, but in more severe cases, it can be linked to neurological conditions where the brain gets stuck on a particular thought pattern. It's your brain trying to process or resolve something, but it ends up in a loop. Think of it as your brain's attempt to fix a problem by replaying it over and over until it finds a solution, or at least tries to. While annoying, perseveration serves as a reminder of just how busy and complex our brains are, constantly working to make sense of the world around us. Number 9. Confabulation, filling in the gaps. Confabulation happens when your brain creates false memories or stories to fill in gaps in your memory. This is not intentional lying. It's your brain's way of maintaining a coherent narrative about your life. If you can't remember how you got home or why something happened, your brain fills in those blanks with plausible details, often without you realizing it. This can lead to memories that feel entirely real, even though they're completely fabricated. The brain hates empty spaces in memory and strives to fill them, which is why it's so creative at inventing details. Confabulation shows how deeply our sense of self is tied to our memories, and how our minds will go to great lengths to maintain continuity and coherence in our personal histories. Each of these phenomena demonstrates just how powerful and fallible our brains are. From creating false memories in groups, Mandela Effect, to inventing elaborate stories to fill memory gaps, confabulation, our brains are constantly working to make sense of the world. But when things go awry, we can end up with some curious, even unsettling, mental experiences. These psychological phenomena illustrate the complex and sometimes protective mechanisms of the human brain. Here's a breakdown of each one. Number 8. Sensory gating, filtering reality. Sensory gating is the brain's ability to filter out irrelevant or overwhelming sensory information in order to focus on what's important. Imagine standing in a bustling train station. Your brain isn't consciously processing every sound, smell, or touch in that moment. Instead, it selectively lets in only the most important sensory input. For example, you might tune out the background noise of conversations or the hum of the refrigerator as your brain decides these aren't immediately relevant. Without this filtering, Your brain would be overwhelmed by the sheer volume of stimuli around you, making it difficult to concentrate or have coherent thoughts. Sensory gating is like your brain's internal spam filter, ensuring you aren't bombarded with every little detail of your surroundings, allowing you to focus and stay grounded in the present. Hash number 7. Depersonalization, derealization. Depersonalization and derealization are defense mechanisms your brain uses when you're faced with overwhelming stress, trauma, or emotional distress. Depersonalization makes you feel disconnected from your own body or thoughts, as though you're observing yourself from the outside. Derealization makes the world feel unreal, dreamlike, or distorted, as if you're living in a simulation. While these experiences are unsettling, they're not signs of psychosis, but rather a temporary emotional shield. The brain uses these mechanisms to protect you from intense emotional or psychological overload by creating a psychological distance. It's like your mind hitting the pause button to give you a break from the overwhelming emotions or thoughts, but the effect can feel very disorienting. Number 6. Familiarity backfire. Déjà vu. Déjà vu is the eerie feeling that something new feels strangely familiar, as if you've experienced it before. This is thought to happen when your brain's memory processing system misfires. The theory is that sensory information travels along two slightly different pathways, and sometimes the second signal reaches the brain just slightly later than the first. This causes your brain to process the experience as if it's a memory, even though it's happening in real time. The brain, in its attempt to make sense of the situation, incorrectly tags it as something you've experienced before, even though it's brand new. Déjà vu can feel like a glitch in the matrix, but it's just a minor hiccup in how your brain organizes and processes memories. Number 5. Dissociation. Mental escape. Dissociation is the brain's way of protecting you from overwhelming experiences, like extreme trauma, pain, or stress. It's more than just zoning out. Dissociation can involve losing touch with your thoughts, feelings, or sense of identity. It acts as a psychological defense mechanism, allowing you to temporarily detach from an experience that is too distressing to fully process. In mild forms, this can be as simple as spacing out while driving or having a memory lapse. In more severe cases, dissociation can involve dissociative identity disorder, DID, where individuals experience different personalities or identities. This mental escape allows the brain to compartmentalize distressing information, protecting the person from being emotionally overwhelmed. While dissociation is adaptive in the short term, chronic dissociation can lead to difficulties in managing emotions and memories. Each of these mechanisms highlights the brain's ability to adapt and protect itself when dealing with overload, stress, or emotional pain. While they serve protective purposes, they can also be disorienting or disruptive, underscoring just how complex and intricate our mental and emotional processes are. These psychological mechanisms show just how complex and protective the brain can be when it faces overwhelming stress, trauma, or challenges. Let's break down each of these phenomena. Number 4. Emotional flatlining. Apathy, numbness. When you're faced with intense emotional distress, emotional blunting or numbness can occur as a defense mechanism. Your brain, trying to protect you from overwhelming feelings, essentially shuts down your emotional response. You may find yourself in situations that would typically trigger joy, sadness, or anger, but instead, you feel detached or indifferent. This is your brain's way of creating a barrier between you and the emotional overload, especially after trauma or stress. While this numbness can offer temporary relief, it can also make you feel isolated and disconnected from your emotions. It's like your brain is turning down the emotional thermostat, not because the feelings aren't there, but because they're too intense to handle all at once. Number 3. Extinction burst. When things get worse before they get better. When trying to break a bad habit or change behavior, you may encounter an extinction burst. This is when the behavior you're trying to eliminate actually gets worse before it gets better. Your brain has learned that certain behaviors, like checking your phone for a dopamine hit or a child whining for candy, bring rewards. So when those rewards suddenly stop, your brain cranks up the intensity of the behavior in a last-ditch attempt to get that reward again. It's your brain's way of testing whether the old strategy still works. This burst of heightened behavior can feel frustrating and discouraging, but it's actually a sign that the brain is adjusting and learning that the old pattern isn't going to be reinforced anymore. Stick with it, and the behavior will eventually fade. Number 2. The misinformation effect, rewriting memories. The misinformation effect occurs when new, misleading, or inaccurate information is introduced into your memory, and your brain seamlessly integrates it into your recollection of an event. This happens because memory isn't a perfect recording. It's reconstructive. Every time you recall a memory, your brain pieces it together, and new details, even if they're incorrect, can be added without you realizing it. This is why eyewitness testimonies can sometimes be unreliable, even when the person truly believes their version of events. Your brain is more concerned with creating a coherent and understandable story than with absolute accuracy, which means your memories might not always align with reality. It's like your brain is editing the story of your life to ensure it fits together nicely, even if some of the facts are off. Number 1. Functional neurological disorder, body's emergency exit. Functional neurological disorder, FND, is a condition where physical symptoms like loss of vision, inability to walk, or tremors appear without any detectable medical cause. The brain creates these physical symptoms as a response to psychological stress or trauma that it can't process or resolve. Essentially, your brain diverts the emotional or psychological pain into a physical manifestation. This is a form of psychosomatic response, where the mind and body are so intertwined that emotional distress can manifest as physical symptoms. While this is incredibly unsettling and can be debilitating, FND is a way for the brain to provide a tangible problem to focus on, rather than an invisible emotional burden. It's like your brain hitting the escape button by creating a physical ailment when the psychological load becomes too heavy. Each of these phenomena shows the brain's ability to protect itself in times of distress, whether by blocking emotional pain, emotional flatlining, giving a last push to reinforce old behaviors, extinction burst, distorting memories for coherence, misinformation effect, or even creating physical symptoms to deal with overwhelming stress, FND. These responses might feel disorienting, but they highlight the brain's remarkable, albeit imperfect, coping strategies.